Hi, this is Marina from Dark Star Astrology, and I'm bringing you the month of March, the astrology report. And we start off with the big stellium. It's still Venus and Mars together with Pluto. So that's kind of the love bombing of Mars and Venus. But Pluto intensifies it, of course, and karmic relationships are very much highlighted. Also, you can see right from the start that there is that really nice trine to Ceres, which I did think was something to do with environmental stuff. I mean, it's very much oil and things that are under the ground, because Ceres is the Earth, it is Mother Earth, and Pluto is kind of the raping, really, of Mother Earth. So I'm also thinking of fracking, things like that. I mean, it's an odd thing because in the UK, I know that our gas prices are going to go up. Our heating bills are supposed to go up by £700 each. So that's quite a scary notion. And this is all due to us not really having our own gas supply. And if we were allowed to frack, we could be self-reliant and not reliant on Russia, which is where we get our gas from, and things are all getting a bit difficult with that connection. So I don't know, supply chains and the reliance on Russia is not great. But at the same time, you know, it's what is the impact on the environment? So I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things, but I think that will raise some questions for March, for at least us in the UK. There is also a conjunction between Saturn and Mercury as well. So now these are both on Sulis on the Dolphin. I don't know if there is. Let me just check. Yeah, there's no interpretations there's no fixed stars that are major on at that degree, but Mercury in Decan 2 of Aquarius is dignified, so it's very strong, gives the ability to speak for ourselves, powerful orators here, and politics is well starred for that. So also I think, you know, with Saturn being there too, and the fact that Pluto rules elites too, I think, you know, that's going to be a big theme for the beginning of the month. I mean, I know Mercury goes pretty fast, but it's just the fact that it is stimulating Saturn, and I think that's it really. Let's move on. Oh yes, one thing to be aware of is that we've now reached peak Algol on the North Node. That was exact on February the 27th, but now it's still moving away. But it's going to be there. It's going to be there all the way through March as well. So let's just refresh our memory about the Algol, what it really means. So I'm just going to give you some of the key words from the Algol post. So it's creating monsters, Frankenstein, splicing, plastic surgery, mutation, genetic manipulation, playing God, weird heads, unusual hair, abnormal sex drive, perversion, warped mind, exaggerated demeanour, deformities, a creation that becomes destructive to its maker. I mean, it's very Frankenstein-y. But there's also regeneration, montaging, potency versus impotence, brewer's droop, striking, stunning, spine-tingling, mind-blowing, getting out of your head, mind over matter, ultra-creative, being your own god, soothing pain, because it is like a painkiller, Algol, care for the suffering, having a very haunting voice, speaking for the underdog, exorcising one's demons, and working with the shadow. So, you know, Algol also rules heads of states and beheading. It rules treason and replacing one ideology with another. The head also contains the brain, so it's about wisdom. And of course, snakes in the hair representing higher knowledge. and even psychic antenna as well. And I guess, having very, very long hair is supposed to be kind of like, it's supposed to make you more psychic. And I have to say, I've been growing my hair and I feel so much better with it longer. And I don't know whether that's to do with any extra kind of antenna capability with it being so long, but I just feel much happier with it for some reason, and I don't really know why. Now, Algol is also prominent amongst those who work in the mass media, and again we get a connection with media, medicine, anti-venom, snakes, and media is communications, and it also speaks out. And it's not surprising since Medusa was known for her screaming mouth and protruding tongue. And it also rules the throat as well. So it's kind of interesting at the moment with the connections between, I guess, what's happening in the medical world with what's happening in the media world. And also to do with mutations, the genetic manipulation. You see where I'm going with this, but I don't want to elaborate any further. But it's very interesting that at this very moment we have Algol really being emphasized. So I don't know if there are going to be any medical developments at this time. I think we've kind of really come to the sort of end game of this, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see what happens with this, whether there's going to be any more pushing for splicing or genetic manipulation with this Algol, because it comes to a head really at the end of February, beginning of this March, and it's going to carry on into March as well. And one other thing to take note as well is on the South Node. The South Node is, I think it's on its way to Una Carli, but it's currently on a Gina, which is the wound in Chiron, in Chiron's leg, or horse's leg. So, Chiron is also the healer as well. So on the other side from this Algol and genetic manipulation, there is, I'd say, natural herbs, natural healing. Yeah, it's actually getting closer to Una Carli. Now, Una Carli is in the serpent. It's the serpent that the what's his name? The Serpentarius, but it's a fucus as well. The famous 13th sign. It's actually the serpent that he's holding. So again, associated with venom. So yeah, we have snakes on both sides of these nodes at the moment. Now, what's also very interesting is the fact that Venus and Mars are really together for a lot of March, because I think it's because Venus is still slow from her retrograde. She hasn't really speeded up yet, so she's kind of moving at the same speed as Mars, and you get them. Okay, let me see. Venus is behind Mars at the beginning. She's at 26, and they're both at 26, but she's behind. And then she kind of, when does she overtake him? She's still behind him, still behind him, still behind him. They must have wait a minute, there must be a conjunction here. Yes, there is another conjunction of Venus on Mars. Or this is going to be my aspect of the month. It is very much so, because it's going to be at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And what the hell happened when there was 0 degrees of Aquarius being triggered? That was where the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happened, and that is on Altair. It's Altair the Eagle, Jupiter's Eagle. So what does that degree mean for Mars and Venus? Oh, and not only that, this is March the 6th, by the way. The moon on that day will also square it, so it's going to be ultra triggered. So this is March the 6th. My location for this is London. It's 9 a.m. in London. I'm not sure what that is in other places, but it's universal time anyway. Because London is the home of Greenwich. It's the centre of the world. The empire. Anyway, that's why I call it Lizard Central, because it kind of is. and I live in the middle of it anyway. Not for much longer anyway. So this Venus Mars conjunction is on Altair, and the meaning of Mars and Venus on there. I mean, first we've got the love bombing aspect, and then we have to look at the meaning of Altair. Now, Venus on Altair, according to Robson, the medieval, he's not actually medieval. He all seems like his meanings seem very medieval, but he was actually writing in the 1930s. Yes, so it is unfavourable for love affairs, strange and peculiar attractions, bad for children and gain, losses through friends. It's not very lucky, Venus on Altair, but I still like the conjunction, so I'm not going to be too down on it. And just to see some examples, I think it's always really good to see who has this, just to get an idea of the energy. That's why I always look at the celebs and famous people, just to see, if Robson is right. But before we look at that, I've got to say also what Bernadette Brady has, because she's a lot more up to date. And she says it's the bold artisan, one who is sexually and or sensually orientated, to challenge, and then in a general meaning for the collective, it's to challenge the sexual, sensual or sporting expectations of a society. And also Venus does rule this decan too, so it's really powerful. So I think it is success in the arts. If this connects with anything in your chart, then it should bring you some artistic success. I really hope so, because it's on my sun. And also it gives you the courage to stand true to yourself in order to activate the fortunate aspects of the position. So you just have to be true. Any falsity shows the native in exceedingly negative light and can rapidly cause a fall from grace. I mean, and financial loss. So this is because of the high-flying eagle side. So some examples of Venus in this decan are Nostradamus, Philip K. Dick, J.R.R. Tolkien, and I mean, there's other ones like Franklin D. Roosevelt, Justin Trudeau. Well, that's going to be interesting. So he's going to be in the news. I mean, he is already. So is he going to be struck down by Zeus's eagle there? It does fit with him because apparently, Venus in Altair, Jupiter's eagle, like the pretty boys, he liked to get his pretty boys for waiter service. But then you've got, like in the music industry, there's quite a lot as well. Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones, Dido, Gary Newman, Taylor Swift, and Ravel, wonderful Ravel, and Phil Spector. So they're pretty good. What else? I think that's it really for Venus. Let's look at Mars now. So Mars on Altair is sharp mind, trouble through friends, society and companies, but eventual gain. So it's a bit more lucky with Mars. Then Bernadette Brady says to be daring and at times take rash action, to be drawn to the military or to use a military style approach to problem solving. Now, in the mundane, she says it's to attack, to go to war or act bravely. So there could be some kind of, I don't know what's happening with the truckers. I haven't actually came up to date with that. But, I think it's because it's the eagle, because it's quite feisty, and it's also quite Jupiter in its energy because of it being Zeus's eagle as well. So I think you put those two together, Mars and Venus, and it is the energy that springs to mind is, the Eight of Swords tarot card, which is kind of swiftness. I think that's what it is. It's kind of swiftness. I was just noticing the people that have Mars here. Eva Longoria. I think she, because I'm watching Desperate Housewives at the moment, and she does strike me as being very Mars in Decan 2 of Aquarius, very Mars Altair. I don't know if it's actually on Altair for her, But she's a passionate girl, isn't she? She's not a girl anymore. But anyway, yeah, so those are interesting. Now, just to remind ourselves of Jupiter on Altair, it was real or pretended religious zeal, hypocrisy, trouble through legal and church matters, and with relatives. So, again, it's bold action. That's what Bernadette Brady says. It's very zealous. It's got a hugely religious undertone, and I was thinking, when I wrote the meaning, let me go to my old post. I did do a video all about this. Maybe it might be a good opportunity to review it. Or maybe I'll link it below. But I wasn't as... I was quite negative about it, really, even though, because I didn't want to get too excited, because obviously it was taking place on my sun. But it's an interesting that the theme for that decan, Austin Copop calls it the mark of the exile. And, a lot of people are being exiled from society now if they don't get upgraded. And I also said that there's also an overlay of military and religious zeal to the decan. And I don't know why, I just put the Knights Templar come to mind. Times are tough, really. Because, Aquarius the sun is in its detriment, so it should be kind of the power to the people, really. But what people? It depends. There's no kind of leadership. And the thing about leadership, it's a strange thing, because sometimes you need... If you have a household that's just doesn't have a leader to it, that it's all like... It doesn't have a patriarch, if you like... it can get, what happens when someone attacks your house? What if there's no major tough guy to punch them in the face? Unless, sorry to keep mentioning bloody Desperate Housewives, but unless you're armed, because I'd be watching that and I'd be thinking, I wish I was Brie. I wish I had a gun I could defend myself with. But yeah, unless you have a weapon and you're a woman, you are basically, unless you're trained in the freaking martial arts, you're not going to be able to defend your kids, So that's why, in a way, getting rid of anyone who is going to, knock down the defense, the tough guy, and everybody's like mush, aren't they? They're just... You can just go in there and clean up, So yes, removing all leaders can be not a good thing, because who's going to defend you? And we don't have any leader. When you look at the West, we have no strong leaders left. We don't. They're not running the show. Biden, Boris, they're all toppling. It's the Algol effect. All the leaders are toppling, but what's going to replace them? Shady people that we can't even vote for. We don't even know who they are. So there's this very, it's a very shady thing. But I did look at the whole, what was it? The fourth turning, which is a basic theory that economies rise and fall within a generation of 80 years. And interestingly, the Uranus cycle is 84 years. So I kind of came up with a whole thing, but it's too hard to go into for this. It'll take too long. It's this huge study I did as part of my Saturn-Jupiter. And what it really boils down to is the Saturn-Jupiter cycle is like a cycle within a cycle. So if you've got the 80-year economic cycle, and then within that you have every 20 years. So I kind of figured it out, and then I came to the conclusion that... What was my conclusion? Yeah. So that we are basically in peak winter. So I may be a bit off here because I haven't actually read the book, The Fourth Turning. I just listened to a YouTube video with Is War Coming? So according to Roger James Hamilton, who is an economics specialist, and I'm not, he says we're in the middle of the winter season and a crash, economic crash or war is coming in the next 5 years. So he's not an astrologer, but I wondered if the war is the Jupiter Saturn conjunction was signaling the peak of the crazy time. So that was last year. When was it again? Yeah, it was the end of 2020, so it was a year ago. Now, this is what's going to get triggered by the Venus and Mars. And the peak is, I think, I figured it out that the peak would be when these Jupiter conjunctions would be. So if we're in peak winter, that's really good news. The peak of it was at the end of 2020, which was really, when I think that's when they started rolling out. They rolled out the upgrades then. Now, according to Hamilton, the last winter period ended in 1945, which gave us a new world order. And if 1945 was the beginning of a new era, then 1945 plus 80 equals 2025. So 2025 could be the dawn of this new age. And is this the Aquarius age? So looking at the peaks, I would say we start the cycle later than 1945 because it's so clear where the peaks are. And this is what I did. I know this is kind of a bit off topic, but I think it's worth looking over again because, this is being triggered. So this is to give you an example of an 80-year cycle. So here we go. So it starts in spring and it starts from 1951 and it finishes in 1971. So that's the first 20 years of this 80 years, right? And the peak of that was 1961. And I think 1961 in America, I mean, obviously I wasn't alive then, and none of us know really for sure, but it was before Kennedy was assassinated. Everything seemed very everything was on the up for America. It was a superpower. It had everyone, everyone wanted to be in America. And that was the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn. Then the next 20 years we get summer, and that goes from 71 to 91, with the peak being 81, which is Reagan years. Again, 81, I remember it well. I was alive, and it was pretty peak. I mean, I was part of a generation, the Gen Xers. There was loads of us. We ruled the roost. There were more kids than anyone. The pubs were full of teenagers. Now you don't see the pubs full of teenagers. It's full of old people. Or, winers and diners. But yeah, there was loads of us. And that coincided with Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Libra. Then we get the next 20 years is autumn 1991 to 2010. And the peak, I think, then was 2000. And that's when they sort of say, a lot of people say, that's when musical, like culture, like films and music just kind of came to a dead end. And there was no more creativity after 2000. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but maybe I am. But I mean, it could be just my age group, like all the best music was like before the 2000s. Anyway, that was the Jupiter conjunction Saturn in Taurus. And then winter now, that was autumn, by the way. So you think, things are dying down. And usually the peak is obviously, just thinking of the seasons, spring and summer are always the hopeful time when everything is reaching its peak. And then things start dying down from autumn. So now we are winter, and that started 2010, and it should kind of end around 2:30. And the peak for that, the peak terribleness, really, Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius, and that was 2020. So the fixed star Altair actually is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So the effect will really last until March the 10th. And then this Venus and Mars, like I said, they just tag along together for a long time. I mean, they're still within a degree of each other until about March the 16th. And then, you see, they trigger a lot of stuff too, because then we get Mars is going to square Uranus, which can be fireworks, and it's still with Venus as well. And this is going to be, March the 20th. Relationships, I think, stubborn fixed signs. There's going to be a lot of heels digging in around that time. And I don't think it's not a very harmonious chart, really. Although Mars is making this trine to Ceres too. And I think, there's just going to be some kind of having to reach a compromise that is to do with like organic living, really. Oh, yes. And also there's a lot going on in Pisces because the Sun is at 29, Neptune at 23, Jupiter at 18, Mercury at 17. So the general feel at the end of March is more of the kind of Piscean. There's the Piscean mutable energy where people just want to zone out. And then there's the Saturnian Aquarius energy where people are having to confront relationships and not run away from them. But I think there'll be a lot of escapism, especially with Uranus, the square. There'll be a lot of long-term relationships where one of them just wants out and it's a shock, and they may just, make a break for freedom. Freedom is the big one. So it's freedom or going along with the flow, which is the Piscean energy. A lot is all clustered around Aquarius and Pisces still. And then Venus joins up with Saturn, which I think is sort of making up after the breakup. So from about March the 26th, things are a little bit more stable. The Sun's gone into Aries. That's it. We need to. Oh my God, we have to look at the equinox, the spring equinox chart. But I think I might do that next month because it's to do with Aries, and I just think that we've covered a lot of ground when it comes to the Saturn Jupiter as well. So I will leave that till next month, I think. But I want to talk more about, the Saturn Venus, because March the 28th, we got the Saturn Venus conjunction, which is at 21 degrees of Aquarius, and that is it's in between two quite major fixed stars, and it's, Deneb Algol, which is the tail of the goat, and Sadelsud, that's an Aquarius. This is going to be a very weird time for relationships. I mean, I did say, normally Saturn and Venus together, it is, a commitment. But it could be like a commitment that scares someone away, because Venus on Sadelsud is strange events, romantic and peculiar marriage, entailing separation for government or political reasons. Weird. I guess when it comes to what's been going on in terms of the divide and conquer, and maybe one of the partners in a relationship has been upgraded, the other one hasn't. I don't know. Could be that's there's a problem within relationships because of government interference, because it's government interference, and especially if you can't travel. If one member of the family can't travel because they haven't gone along with things, and the rest of the family have, I mean, that's the exile of Aquarius again. And then Venus on Deneb Algol, the tail of the goat, is some secret desire that is never gratified, domestic or family difficulties. There you go again. And that was Bernadette Brady. Oh no, sorry, that was Robson. Bernadette Brady says a conventional attitude to art or the social customs of relationships, a lover of the classics in music, film or literature. So yeah, that's kind of quite a tame version of it, really. So yes, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen with relationships towards the end of the month, but I guess there's going to be people who are going to be the eternal. I mean, actually, what I wrote in the meaning of this is like it could be just wanting to be alone, you know, and because Marlene Dietrich had this, like, I want to be alone. If I can't, you know, have someone who's a partner who is on board with me ideologically in terms of the health and the upgrades or whatever, it's going to be lonely. It is going to be lonely for a minority of people, because most have gone along with this. So you're in the minority, and that's sad. And then otherwise there's the rebels as well. So it's, I don't know. It can also be like the eternal bachelor or eternal bachelorette, or needing a very open-minded partner as well. So relationships, unusual relationships, all those things are going to be highlighted during March. So I think I'll leave it there, and we'll look at the spring equinox chart in Aries, or in the March horoscope, because it will be with us for the next 6 months. So I just think I wanted to wrap up the year, the astrological year, really, and we start a new cycle really in spring. All right then, so thanks for listening. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.